joining the webinar and letting us present budgeting and planning in Power BI together with Pragmatic Works. My background, my name is Solli. I'm the founder of PowerON. Since 2012, we have been doing write-back technologies on tabular models. As some of you might know, it's easy to do with multidimensional SSAS models. It's kind of native in there, and Microsoft supports it. But in tabular, it's harder for technical reasons and for the usability and the ability to do write-back with tabular models, because in 2014 Microsoft didn't have a direct strategy for what they were going to do when it comes to BI. In 2014 they created Power BI version 1.0, and that was in SharePoint, and we all know how hard it was to use Excel and setting up Power Views and everything else. But then luckily in 2015 they decided to go for the Power BI 2.0 as we know it today. And we are seeing wild adoption, a lot of users jumping onto that and trying that out instead of other technologies for BI technologies. So we have been around since, as I said, since 2012. We have a couple of products. Some of you might have heard about Power Update. Power Update is a tool that lets you refresh data using Power BI desktop workbooks or Excel workbooks and publish them to Power BI or to SharePoint. The core product we're going to talk about today is Power Planner and Visual Planning, which is actually a fully fledged corporate performance management tool inside of Power BI. The way we work, this is an add-on, or we are using the visual technology in Power BI for enabling the write-back. So what I'll explain to you in a little bit how this works, but I'm going to start off with showing it actually working in action. So what you will learn from this webinar, hopefully after the next 45 minutes or so, is the ability, or how does it work, what is it used for, what are the use case scenarios, and I saw from the very interesting feedback that this is something that's usually has been perceived sitting in finance, but what we see more and more is that operations are also having the need for doing write-back and the ability to do immediate response to entries that I'm doing into a BI tool. The solution is not necessarily always to load everything in with an ETL process. There are scenarios where we do want to enable users to present them with numbers and let them save it and then see the result and observe it immediately, like what if scenarios, goal seeking, and other abilities. So just position us a little bit on the map. We usually compete against Tagetic, TM1, Hyperion, and Anaplan. Those are the tools that we are mostly being compared to. Power BI has just been around for a couple of years, so we are the new kid on the block, which is good. But it also takes a little while to get the word out there, and thank you guys for joining us today to take a look at this further. So without further ado, I'll jump into the presentation and see how we would dive into the tool, and we'll take a look at what it looks like to do, what users will do when they're doing budgeting and planning in Power BI. So first, we're going to look at what the end user will do. So you are now looking at a screen that you can recognize from Power BI. You have seen all these visuals before. There's a little map here. There are some filters. We can slice by salesperson. We have some. This is a custom visual at the lower left corner, and I can then filter and use all these selections in order to filter what we call and refer to as the magic grid. So this is not the grid that you're used to seeing in Power BI. This is our grid, and I'll explain in a few minutes how it's all set up for this to work. So in this grid, I am looking at my company has $32 million in revenue. In first quarter, we are doing 1.3. And if I wanted to change that to 1.5, I just go ahead and type it in into the grid and I press save. And what's happening right now is that all the data goes back into the SQL database, and part of the tabular model is being processed, not the actual data, not the forecast data, but just the budget data. And we saw the quick shift in the data because all the visuals are now being refreshed. So here we're now looking at the new total, which is a little bit over 32 million in sales. And I have 1.5 million in quarter one for my Apple products. So if I can do also smart formulas, so we can increase this number with 10%, and then you can do the math yourself, and you can see if you're faster than the right bet that we are doing, and then but we are also spreading it back by all the products right here. So now I increase this with 10%, which was 165. And then we also spread it back relative to the numbers that we're using right there. If I, for some reason, didn't distinguish between the two, I can also type E for equal. I can see equals 100,000. And that means that when I write that back, I'll get 50 and 50 in March between my two Apple products. So it takes the number of products and spreads it back. We also have goal seeking that I'll talk about a little bit later. So I can change it. You know, I showed you how to change a quarter number. We can change a month number, or I can also go and change a cell number. Just on the quick side note, feel free to ask the questions. We will have ample time to address all those, and send those in the webinar window, and then we will address them at the end of the presentation. So what happens when I start splitting the data? So when I start filtering the data. So let me reset this back to 1.5 million so we have an easy number to remember. I'll just save that. And then filtering is very, very important. So what happens right now, we know this from Power BI, this is the essence of Power BI. So here I can take a look at Chris. I can see that he's at 12 million approximately. So when I click at Chris, I get the detail about Chris. And I can see his monthly numbers in the grid, magic grid right there. So he's at 11.7. That's the correct actual number. What I can do with him is that, remember, we have 1.5 million for total. Chris has 867. So what I can do here, I can say increase this with 1 million. So this is my magic formula. And when I say that, I'm increasing his sales budget with 1 million. As we can see, his increase from 12 to 13. But when I clear the filter, you'll also see that the total updated to 2.5 million right there. So this is the essence of forecasting, budgeting, and planning, because you can do this on any data model. So our claim to fame is that when you usually think about budgeting, planning, and forecasting, as we saw from the results, from the poll results we had earlier, most of you believe that, or think, or experiencing that budgeting, planning, and forecasting and write back is something that's happening in the finance. But right now, by using this technology that we have made available through PowerON, and Pragmatic Works helping us to do the implementations and deployments of this, you can now enable this data entry for anybody, because most questions that I can hear or feel in the background is like, but we don't want anybody to change our actual numbers, and they are not. They are read-only. So we have security on the back end. Right now, I've been working with the budget numbers. So, of course, the actual numbers are loaded from external systems. Right now I'm working with budgets and forecasts and target setting, so I can kind of create this reporting. This grid, for those of you who are interested in Power BI, is very easy to set up. It's exactly like the other grid that you're used to use. It has all the different settings, rows, columns, values, and the filter sections. So I can actually flip between the original grid, which is the matrix right here, or use my grid, which is right here. And they flip back and forth, and it's actually you can use those, and they're completely transparent on how you're using the grids for the budgeting and planning. So it's exactly the same setup as you have with using any other Power BI solution, where you define all your different filters and selections, and just using the magic grid to do the data entry. So how does this work? So let's take a look at the PowerPoint deck that shows us a little bit about how we usually set this up. The white section here describes how we usually go ahead and set up a Power BI solution. Of course, there are many configurations. This is just one example. But we start usually with some structured data sources. In this scenario, data coming from SAP, Oracle, Salesforce, the Dynamics suite of products, whatever it might be. But as you know, you can use Power Query's 75 connectors to load data into a SQL data mart, where we transport and ETL the data and clean the data in here. The second step we do is to set up a Tableau model, which can be either on premises or hosted in Azure, in SSAS in Azure. Then we can create a Power BI workbook that is reading data from this SQL database or from this Tableau model. And then I can create the visual that I just looked at, but I don't have the write back yet. The blue section talks about the write back. So in order to enable this in your organization, you need to download our Power Planner web service. It installs in 10 minutes. All you need to have is a good old IIS server somewhere. It can be in Azure, it can be on premises, it can be hosted in wherever you want it to be hosted. And then what we did right now is that we took the grids that you just looked at. This is the same presentation that you just looked at with a magic grid. Connect that to the Power Planner web service, and then that is connected to the SQL database and the Tableau model, and then is using Power BI to visualize the data. You can also use Excel, and that's what how we compare to competition really well, and that is that we can use Excel to connect that as well, because we have business analysts in organizations. We have different needs and different types of users. Not everybody is comfortable working with Power BI, but it's a very effective tool because of the analytics capabilities we have, the ability to slice and dice, the custom visuals, and the speed of the Tableau model. So right now, we can then hook up Excel up as well, so the business analysts can then prepare and write the data back to the SQL database. So we're all looking at the same environment. So I'm going to go, and that's my the third thing I'm going to do today is to go into Excel and show how this works and how we can set it up, and some of the tools that we have made available in Excel for the BAs to prepare and clean the data and populate the data easily without having to have heavy duty, costly, difficult to manage ETL solutions to load this up. There's also a licensing server that can do both named users and concurrent licensing. I'll cover that at the very end of the presentation. So right now we have the ability, with this technology, you have the ability to do all types of budgeting, planning, and forecasting. That's where you see the key market is. That's kind of where the main focus is. People want to do projections on revenue. They want to manage expenses. We can do headcount for headcount planning. So we can create a form like this, and people can say, I want to add new hires, I want to add new employees. What we're also seeing the most used right now is the companies that would like to enter data instead of ETL it in all the time. So let's say they want to enter in production volumes, projected oil prices, projected currency rates. They want to play around with the different data. That's how the write back comes in really handy. And this is where the goal seeking part, which is kind of now moving into a little bit more advanced data entry. So the goal seeking part is that I can take any number here and adjust it and use my goal seeking to see the result. So let's say I knew for the budget for March, I needed to reach 3 million. And I knew that I could take this product and goal seek that. I can take this product and goal seek that. So now I'm just cherry picking the values that I would like to goal seek. So we can now take a look at these two numbers are both 73,000, and then we can use this one. This is 1900. So if I say I want to go in here now and I want to increase this with, let's say, 1.5 million, just to kind of kick it up, so we can see the changes. And right now, after the save is done, we'll keep an eye on these guys. But this is going to still be 73,000, but only the red numbers have changed after my save. And this is extremely powerful for users that would like to do allocations. And here we are. Here's my 73,000. Out of the 1 million, we allocated 5,000 or 4,000 approximately to the cola products, and the rest are then spread between the other products. So this is, you can goal seek numbers like this in any kind of way, shape, or form. You can go by row, you can go by column, you can go by total, you can do it individually, or you can also goal seek DAX formulas. We didn't poll how many users are familiar with the term DAX, but DAX is the formula language in Power BI. So when you need to write a formula to calculate actual to budget, year-over-year growth, anything like that, you do need to learn and pick up the DAX language. So goal seek, I'll show a little bit about goal seek in Excel. It's even more powerful right there. So what I'm going to do next, I'm going to move on to another visual that we have. So this is kind of our, what we call the matrix, the write back matrix. Very easy to set up, just connect it to the web service and you're all ready to go and write backs on any model. Which is part of what we talked about earlier, is that our claim to fame is that we work on any tabular model that has ever been built. If you have ever worked with WriteBack or any of the typical systems that or solutions that I mentioned earlier, like Anaplan or Hyperion, they have their own set data models and their own rules. You have to have an account, you have to have a department, you have to have a currency rule, whether you're exposed to currency or not. Not here. Right now, there's nothing about accounts in here. It's only about my customers, profitability by state, by customer type, by packaging. And that's how I'm going to do my project, because this is how I can drive my profitability and kind of find where the opportunities are and uncover the problems so we can attack them and figure out why is Helm not performing when it comes to sales. So you can click on Helm and we can easily see where what products she is not doing well at. So we can then see how she's doing with the cola products and filter it down by using the filter tab in Power BI. So in summary, the matrix gives you the ability to change any number in your tabular model, goal seek it, filter it down by any Power BI visualization, and fully deploy and replace very costly and powerful and and hard to maintain corporate performance management tools. And instead, you can do it all in Power BI and have one calculation for gross profit across all the systems, either whether it's a budget system or a BI system. The next thing we're going to move on to is the table editor. Some of you are probably familiar with the fact that Microsoft just launched Power Apps in Power BI, the custom visuals. If you follow either the Twitter channels or the blogs on Power BI, you know that they have done. You can build a Power App and you can display it in Power BI and edit the numbers directly. We do have that ability too. We use it for, so it's very similar to Power Apps, and just that our grid here is a little bit different. And you don't need to be licensed to use Power Apps to do this. This hooks up to any SQL table that you might have. So how does this work? So in this case, I'm working on the same data, but I'm working on line by line. In the matrix, we're working on aggregated levels. We change numbers for the quarter, we allocate it, we spread it, we goal seek it. In the table editor, I can do selections here as well. So I can work on, say, this is my total sales, but I can say, let's focus on one customer, and my selection changed. We can page the views, I can search, we can filter all the columns, and I can then also change it by either typing in a value here, have a drop-down box that I can populate from another SQL table. We can do calendar picker, so if you want to change this to a different day of the month, that's fine. I can change my quantity and price, have different formatting on them, and then I can save my changes back to the database directly. So I'll show how this, so this is running in what we call direct query mode. So this means that the data in SQL is updated immediately and the visuals are as well. So I'm just going to take this number for January and just going to increase it to an insanely large number. And then we can look at the visual data point right there. And then when I press save, you can see the graph is updating immediately because I changed physically the record in the SQL database. And then I can go back and set it to 1 and I get my same trend back. This supports row-level security in SQL Server, and you can basically build complete applications just using this custom visual right here. You can add rows, you can edit rows, you can delete rows, you can search. You just have to turn the search on and some filter boxes comes up. I didn't turn them on right here. You can use any of the other visuals that you have in Power BI. As you can see here, so if I go back and I clear a filter right there, you can see now I have all my customers here, but it's sorted by key accounts. And I can also filter it by those things, by those members here. And I can then still change the records right here. If I just change this to an insanely large number, the visual will still react to that. As you saw, but now I'm working on all customers and changing some records. So again, this is kind of like a Power Apps Lite. We don't have all the different views, but we have the ability to edit SQL tables and for many purposes. And it can also process the Tableau model and initiate the update of the Tableau model and also the SQL table. We have in a planning cycle, in an application like that, is important to have cycles and manage those cycles. So in this case, I'm using my own tabular editor. That's what we refer to this as. We have the matrix and we have the tabular editor. In this case, I can see from my revenue budget for 2017, my forecast 2, I can see, oh, there are 2 people that haven't started it. That's not good. So I can click on not started. And then I can see that Jane and Jennifer didn't do that. So I can assign this to Adam, and I can and save it. That helps. We can either save row by row, or we can save the whole batch. And then when I change these records, we're using Flow. So as you know, part of Power BI is we have also access to Flow, and Flow will now send an email to these guys and that this budget package hasn't started yet because the other people weren't available. And here the workflow goes out, and I can see then who has approved, who has been funded, what's in progress, who has not started, what's being reviewed, and all these things are being updated, and I can monitor that depending on what users are, how users are using the solution. And here you can see the drop-down boxes. I can filter it, so I can only see the ones that are in progress, or I can search for different dates or other things that I would like to do in the database. We can also use it for master data management. So in master data management, let's say I needed to, in my budget app, I needed to have a new product, I need to have a new customer. I can just start typing it in, say plus. So now I can, if I needed to have a new customer, a new potential customer that we might acquire, then we can just give them a name, and then what state they're in, whatever data that we need to do, and save it. And now this becomes part of my tabular model. You can also add products with the fields that I have in my product table. Again, this doesn't only work for our proprietary tables. This works for any SQL table that is, but you can do this. It works on here. It works in so let me start. I want to show you how it works in Teams. So I'm just going to log into teams.microsoft.com. I'm going to show that in a second, how we can do data entry in Teams. So that was the table editor. So lots of features. You can control this by just doing edit the report right here. And you can then take a look at, you select it as any other visual. And then it has a data connection, edit the report. And as you can see, I selected the editor. Then we have some sessions here, which is data entry, and then column properties, where we can set what type of columns we want to manage in the visual itself. So here are my products. So this is a selection, and these are the different fields that we can choose from. So these are the common database fields that we have: checkboxes and users and text areas, numbers and dates. And then you'll automatically get the drop-down boxes. We'll just see how this guy is loading. So this is a cool, let me just jump into this real quick. Now you can see exactly the same numbers that I just showed you in the matrix in Power BI, but now I'm in Teams. So I can now, here's my 2.5 million. Remember, we worked on Chris, and I'm now in Teams. So I can further increase this to 10%. And then furthermore, save this back. It works here. It works in SharePoint. It works on mobile. You can create these views exactly how you want. And you can write back absolutely anywhere. So for data entry and collecting and increasing quality of the data, it's really easy to develop models by using either the matrix. And now we increased it with 10%, and here's our new number that's allocated between these guys. And I can also then do discussions and discuss this visual with my teammates, and maybe doing budget reviews here in Teams, and track the history by user and collaborate on the budget, which is a lot more fun than sitting with a boring Excel spreadsheet or an app that doesn't look any nice even. Right. So we talked about workflow, we talked about master data management. It was straight in Power BI. We also took a segue into or trip into Teams. So then let's take a look at some other visuals that we have. We love custom visuals. They are absolutely the most powerful thing on Power BI. And in this, why? Because what I believe is the reason why competition is having such a hard time competing with Microsoft at the time in Power BI, because the custom visuals are so powerful. Here we have another one, the third one that we created, which is called a sub-reporting. And if you look closely at this guy, it's two reports in one. I have an auto report right here, so these visuals on the top and on the left-hand side. And here's a custom visual as a sub-report. So when I take the auto, so it increases the canvas of Power BI and the ability to put things on one page immensely. So what happens here, and why do I do this? Because I can filter on COLA products, and now you can see the visual here is changing as well. And not only this visual, but all the other visuals that I do have in this sub-report. So I can reset it to another one. We'll pay attention to this guy. Takes a fraction of a second, and it still updates. And depending on the filtering that I'm doing for the different values right here. So I'm going to click around the clock a little bit. You can see visuals. So all the other 4 other visuals. So this is the one that's easy to see because it has the distribution in it. And then we can see how the sales cycles goes for all the different products while I'm clicking on this guy. So I can have, and then I can click through all the reports and also see how they are changing as I'm clicking on it, and it's all interchanged. So custom visuals, if you haven't learned it yet, that's just on a side note, that's to distinguish yourself from competition. It's an extremely powerful solution that Microsoft has made available to us and in our partner community. So if you take a look at a model here that is in production, so we have obfuscated the data, of course, but we built this in a few days using all the powerful Power BI tools with the magic grid. So in this case, I have a transportation company, kind of like Uber, that are doing different stuff, and they're doing transportation and deliveries, and they want to figure out what their profitability is and when is the right time to sell their business. So here I can create a projection. I created a 5-year plan. I have different scenarios that I can take a look at. I can look at my forecast best. And these are all members in the tables. I can rename them. I can choose. I can select what they should be called. I can do actual to budget comparison right here, just because of lack of space. We just keep them separate right here. But you can do any measure in DAX that you want to use, or just change the year and see how things are growing and happy with our business. Filter it by state if you wanted to. So to filter it now and take a look at what Texas is doing. You can do, for those of you that are interested and or are in a position where you're supporting the finance department, here we can work with, here's a custom visual that we combine with our visual. So if I want to work with admin staff, I can just select these guys, or I can save this as a view. And as soon as I choose these, it will recalculate it here. And then right now I can work with monthly benefits, monthly salaries, and headcount. And totally, here is my staff budget for 2016 in the best scenario. And then if I wanted to change the numbers, we can do that like we did with all of the other visuals that we saw. We can create profit and loss statements, so we can visualize and take a look at what it looks like. I'll admit the competition can have better looking financial statements because we do have some limited visuals, but that's just a matter of time. But what they don't have is these type of visuals right here, where I can see my EBITDA and my growth. And you know, for a finance guy, this is a dream come true, where I can look at my data, I can just hover over the numbers, like, well, this is what it is. I can even go and change it right there. Waterfall, drop downs, I can filter it. I can create all my financial statements, cash flow, balance sheet, and you'll see the data is actually tying. So it doesn't do that always in the budgets or in a BI tool, but in this case we have the same assets and liabilities, which is kind of important. And the last one shows our evaluation and how the business is going, and gives us an idea when is the best time to sell. When do we have our terminal value at the highest, and we can choose the different assumptions and do right back, and letting really enable users to do analysis, right back, and supporting decisions. And I think that is one of the key elements, and what I see happening with visual planning in the team product line that we just looked at, is that taking what I just showed you with financial information that's correct, accurate, and everybody agreed to, building it into a team application where people can make decisions and supporting decision making, because we have all created reports that are being looked at but never changed behavior. And as BI professionals and people that are interested in how our business is performing, we have to admit that that is, you know, the strongest, the most important task, and what we're tasked at and what we actually pays our salary is the ability to help customers, or help our customers, internal customers, to make better decisions, make our business run better, and ultimately develop better products and sell it at more affordable prices. So this is kind of where what PowerON and what we can do together. What you can do. So we developed the products. We develop them, and then we have partners to help implement. So if you're interested in this, you can just contact us, and you know, with Pragmatic Works, that have one of the best training programs and implementation programs in the market for learning Power BI, learning DAX, and SQL. So jokingly, I'm telling everybody that if you're pretty good in SQL, if you know a little bit about Power BI and DAX, I can teach you how to do budgeting and planning in 3 hours, because we are using those tools. It's not a new tool to learn. Everything you've seen so far is 100% Power BI, SQL, and DAX. There's no other technologies, no other formulas, no nothing that you will have to pick up on in order to be able to create what I just did. And as you know, most of these things can be created in a few hours. If you have the data structures with you, I mean, there are things that you have to do. You have to align it, you have to get the colors, you have to get the axis right. It doesn't make itself, but it's a lot faster than anything else that you've done for doing right back and helping your clients, internal clients, develop powerful budgets, planning, forecasts. Because what we are seeing is that in the poll, early poll that we had, again, most of you thought finance is owning this, but what we do see is that this is now kind of being propagated out in organizations, because they want to create a sales forecast, they want to create a production forecast. We have the ability to have a change inventory data straight in the BI system itself. So, and that's not necessarily finance that owns that, is more operations that needs to do this. Sales forecast in Salesforce is not necessarily owned by finance, it's part of operations in many companies. And then what we're able not to do with Power BI is we can sit in Teams or somewhere else in SharePoint and discuss and create these numbers together. It's a completely new paradigm. It's new and it's revolutionizing how we are thinking about corporate performance management. But there's no doubt in my mind that this Power BI will take over and do budgeting and planning for a lot of companies in the next few weeks, months, and years. So let me show a little bit of Excel on how this kind of plays together. So let me take a look right here, sales by products. Let me see what we have. Where did we leave the total? That was in Teams, was not where they did the last. So we are at 34,915,000. That's what Teams are saying our numbers. So 34,915,000. Let's see what we have in Excel. So let's go and refresh. Power Planner, and let's go to refresh. And now we're just going to get the data from Azure. So while that's refreshing, what you've seen so far has all been a SQL database in Azure together with SSAS tabular in Azure. And we can run at the lowest configurations in Azure. And if you are stingy and turn it off at night, if people don't need it, it's 24/7. And if you turn it off on weekends, maybe, then you can get down to a couple hundred bucks a month for hosting the infrastructure of a fully fledged SQL database, and for a tabular model in Azure. And you can set it up in less than 15 minutes and it's all ready to go. Look at that, 34,915,000. That's to the penny the same amount that we had in Power BI. So what we can do here, we can do the same thing. Let me filter it down to just play with January, so smaller numbers, easy to remember. So here I can type in the same thing here. So I'm now the analyst supporting my people in the field. So I can change the same number here. And so what we have left right now, we have about 5-10 minutes left. So what I'm going to show a couple of the Excel features. I'm going to get a little bit technical, but then I'm going to show you a real goodie at the very end, where we're going to do touch, drag and drop, budgeting and planning. And then we're going to wind it up for questions. So real quick here, we can also now, so here comes the technical part. You saw the right pack was working. But I'm going to show you a little bit of goal seek. In order to show you goal seek, I need to go into Power Pivot a little bit. So this gets as technical as it gets. But in the model that I showed you so far, we had quantity and price. That's what we've been playing with. In here, we have a DAX calculation. That is, I'm not the master of DAX, but I can write some of it. So it's average price times the sum of quantity gives me sales. So if I have a DAX calculation, that means that this is a SQL data, this is SQL data, and this is a DAX calculation. So what I can do here is I would like to round this to 2 million. However, since this is a DAX calculation, we know that we cannot write back to something that's a calculation. So I can press commit changes. But Power Planner is going to tell me that that's complete nonsense. I can't write back this because this is this times this, and which will do you want me to change? And the answer is goal seek. So what I can do, I can take my DAX formula, which is sales. I can say, take this side of the equation, optimize that, and increase this to 2 million. So what Power Planner is doing right now, it's taking the number, resolving the DAX equation, and this digs as deep as you want it to dig into solutions. So with 2 million in sales, we have to have 1.5 million units sold. And I can also do that by margin. So margin, think about margin, that will be quantity times price minus discount minus cost of goods sold. That's my margin. So now I can say set this as my, increase this with 10%. So changed this guy and I increased this. And then now we have 3.5 million here. In a little bit, it's going to be close to 4 million. It's 3.9, and that's the new answer. And it digs unlimited levels of DAX calculations where we can resolve this solution. So you don't have to learn anything, just write proper DAX and goal-seek is at your fingertips. Couple of things here that I would like to talk about and cover, the new questions you might have. Comments, so I can say show hide comments. So we can have, we store comments in the database itself. We have features for adding products. So if I wanted to add a new product, so if I want to have a new Pragmatic Works product, so I want to have a cola for Pragmatic Works, cola product for 2-liter can. And then when I save that, I will have that new product in my portfolio because I save it back to SQL, reprocess the tabular model, and then now I can do budgeting on my new cola product. Excel is just refreshing. So here it is, and then now you can see it in your so comments, show hide comments, my cola products. We just need to refresh, and then you'll see your the timed out. That's it. At the very last, I'm going to show you. You're going to see that this guy refreshes. So here's my new cola. I can start doing budgeting and planning on that. We can copy a budget, so I can say, hey, right-click, copy a member, and I can create a new budget very easily. So I can create my budget to a forecast, and let people play with that. Lastly, before we open it up for questions, I wanted to show you a goodie that we have developed with custom visuals and that we are launching these days, which is touch budgeting and planning. So this has a tendency to time out, so I just probably have to let me load it again because it's been sitting there for an hour, and that is so what we have here is the ability to do budgeting and planning on a surface. So what I want you to imagine when I logged in here now is that you're sitting on your surface, you have a touch screen, and you have your fingers, so you can put it down on the screen, and then in a second now I can start allocating and doing my budget with this touchscreen. So here I can use my finger, put it on the yellow bar, and I can drag it up and down. Like that. I can take this guy, drop it out, or I can say, I don't like this allocation. There's going to be a lot more sales in December. I like that much better. I can also go in here to a data point, type it in, say I want to have a comment. I can save the comment, and voila, we have the comment right there. So this is budgeting planning for the future. We are launching this week, and adding it to our customs or set of custom visuals that both us and Pragmatic Works are ready to deploy if you should want to see this in action and set up a one-on-one demo. So that kind of concludes the quick round trip. What we have seen is the matrix, the tablet editor, workflow, collaboration, how to make Power BI into a complete corporate performance management tool where you can cut and slice your Hyperion and Anaplan costs. You can just do it all in Power BI. So, do we have any questions?
All right. right. We'll go ahead and open up for some questions now. So if you have any, please type them into the chat. I do have some here. How do I create the data structures for forecast and planning?
That's a good question. I can show you a little bit. I do happen to have an example here how that can be done. So you can actually do it straight here in Excel. So if you know Excel and tables, you can, if you take a look at this screen that is up right now, this is a very simple data model for getting started with this. If you don't have a model, this is one that we can send to you, and the Pragmatic Works consultants can help set you up. So in this case, I have a very simple account dimension. I have a version dimension. We have a currency. I have a fact table, and I have my period tables that I need in order to get the time dimension. I also have some hierarchies and some locations for my company. And what I didn't get to show you in the demo was the ability that we can do table editing in Excel. So I can add and set up the tables here. And when I go to Power Planner for table, so let me connect real quick. So I can connect to a different database. I can connect to this guy that I'm working on as a proof of concept. And then what I can do here is I can take all these tables, and we have this special tab in here in our add-in. And when I created my Excel table, I can just go here and I say save, and it will actually go ahead and create this table in SQL. So I don't have to kind of use difficult to learn tools like SSIS or any other ETL solution to load this up. I use Excel, and also take a look at Power Updates. So Power Update have the same features to load all your data in a Power Pivot model to a SQL table. Do you have anything else?
Okay. Where can I find license or cost information? Or I guess there was a first part to this question. Will this budget planning for the future work on premise with Power BI server? And then the second part of the question was, where can I find license and cost information?
Very good question. Yes, it works with the newly released SKU from Microsoft for SSRS. So you can install this 100% on premises with the SQL Server report server solution in SQL Server 2016 or be next actually. So that will work fully on premise. You can. There's a blog article called Power BI on localhost that we have on our website, and that discusses how that's really work. That you can actually go and do it right there. Pricing information is right here. We don't publish it on the website, and neither does our competitors. But you can, since you are on this webinar, this is where we start. So a modeler is a person or a user that can create models, publish them, set up security, use to set up the dimensions in the grids that I showed you. So that's $99 per month for a 1-year commitment. And then if you want to have a user in visual planning or Excel, visual planning is Power BI that I showed you. Excel is Excel. It's $54 per user per year. The cool part is if you have the only one that needs a license are the people that are going to write to the data. So if you have, let's say 10 people that needs to update the data, and you have 500 people that needs to view the data, they don't need a license. Do not need a license from PowerON. Only the people that needs to write the data. Additionally, we can lease monthly subscribers. So let's say you needed to have 300 users for October, November, December to finish your budget. Then you can lease 500 users for 3 months, and then we can turn it off. But they can still see their numbers and compare it to actuals throughout the year. They don't need a license to see their data, as they do with absolutely any other corporate performance management tool on the market. So you're the only one who can give away reporting users.
Okay, I have another question here. Is there a way to revert all changes back to what they were when you first opened Power BI? Something like revert to the baseline. For example, you make a bunch of changes, but you want to undo everything you modified.
You can, but it's handled in a different way. What we usually do is that you start with a budget, and then you copy your budget to a sandbox. So let's say I say, I work on the budget and everybody agrees on the budget, but I would like to see what happens if we acquire this company, what happens if we launch the product later. So what I do is I copy it to my sandbox, I play around in the sandbox, and when I'm happy with it, I can take parts of it or all of it and copy that back and overwrite the budget. So it's the same kind of functionality. But we don't have the ability to change to do what the user or the attendee actually asked about directly, but we can achieve it with a workaround to put it up.
All right, I'm just going to go ahead and ask one more question. Does this require the Power BI Pro license?
Yes, it's a Power BI Pro license is required. We cannot run on free. There are too many limitations on that added lately. So you do need to have a pro license, but that's the only thing that's required. So you need to have, so two typical configurations are SQL Server 2016 on premises with a gateway, and then Power BI Pro, or Azure SQL database with an Azure tabular model, and then Power BI Pro. So consider the free version doesn't have the sharing of workbooks and everything else. So if you have one user, you can run it with free technically, but this works with all the other configurations. If you go up, so if you think about Power BI Pro, and then you have the new SKUs that they launched right now, we work with those, and we also work with the on-premises one. So it works with absolutely all configurations and flavors except the free one.
All right, awesome. Well, thank you so much for presenting today. I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up. Thank you, everyone who attended our free webinar today. As always, we will be sending all registrants a follow-up email, including a link to the full recording of today's webinar. I know that's always a popular question that we get. You can also find the recording on our website at pragmaticworks.com. I should be posting it a little bit after lunchtime, so you can check back on our website for that recording. Thanks again for your time, and we look forward to seeing you all next Tuesday for our upcoming free webinar. All right, have a great day, and thanks, Per.
Thank you.